Tuesday night, you came home, you went over, took him groceries, came home, and then...
And then I went to bed,
Okay.
and 3:30 in the morning, I get a call. And at first I didn't answer it, you know, because I kind of looked at the phone and thought, I don't know this number. And then they called back, so I answered the phone, and it was Michael, and it was 3:30 in the morning. And I could tell from the background, the sounds, that he wasn't by himself, he was with somebody, or he was somewhere else. And I said, Michael, what's going on? He goes, everything is so messed up over here. They came in and they trashed my house. And I said, well, I don't understand. What are you talking about? He goes, they just came in. They made a mess of my house, and you know, the police came and all that stuff. And I said, are you with the police? And he said, yes. I said, are you in the police station? And he said, no. He goes, I'm at my house, but I'm in the police car. And I said, do you want me to come over there? He goes, yeah, why don't you come over here? So at 3:30 in the morning, I got up and I drove over to his house. And the police car, Sergeant Bluff Police, was in front of his house. And he was sitting in the car with him. And all the lights were on in his house. All of his shades and curtains were open, and he's never like that. He would never open up a shade. And so when I parked in his driveway, this police officer from Sergeant Bluff got out of the car to come talk to me. He left Michael in the car. He goes, your son called 911 on himself. And he said, when I showed up, he was hiding behind the curtains in his house. He was hiding behind the curtains. So the police had to talk him, this officer had to talk him to come outside of his house. And so finally Michael came outside, but when he came outside, he closed his door. So now he's outside of his house, just like in his, you know, slacks and a t-shirt. And it's cold. And when he closed his door, he locked himself outside. So he had his, you know, his keys and his phone inside his house. And so the officer put him in the car and says, what's going on? And he said, Michael, same thing we all said, very articulate. He started telling him this story about how he was dating some woman, and that he dated her a few times, and then he broke up with her, and then she called her jealous boyfriend because she was mad at Michael, so she wanted him to suffer. And he was talking about a movie star. He was talking about Community, some comedian on Community, and his girlfriend that Michael had dated.
Winger.
You know, none of this, as soon as he said that, I knew none of this was true, but this is what this officer is telling me. He goes, and I believed him.
So it was a real story, but just not involving
Yeah.
him. Okay. Just to kind of make sense of it, he had called the police and
On
said
himself.
this couple was there at his house.
Right, and in his house, trashing his house and tearing it apart. And the officers go, and that officer says, I thought he was you know, it seemed kind of true. He goes, but I looked in his windows and nothing in his house was tore up. He goes, and then he told me, can't you see them sitting on my roof? They're sitting on a couch on my roof. And he goes, and the officer said, that's when I knew that, you know, he's not in reality at all. Then that officer goes, I don't know what's going on with your son. He goes, but, you know, he's hallucinating. And I don't know, and he said, I don't know if he's coming off some kind of drugs or something, you know, that he was. I said, my son, as far as I know, has never taken any kind of those hardcore drugs. I said, he's an alcoholic, you know, and he might smoke some marijuana, but he's never talked. I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, I was just shocked what he was telling me about how he was telling how all this stuff was going on. So now he's locked himself out. His phone is in his house, and so is his keys. He goes, are you comfortable taking him home with you? Because, you know, he's not making any sense. So that was at 3:30 in the morning. And I said, okay, I'll take him home. He made no sense. I've never heard him talk like that in my life. He had no clue as to what was going on. He was just convinced that people had broken into his house and they tore his house to pieces. And he said that it was all because of this woman, and that she was just trying to make him suffer by calling the police on him and tearing up his house so he would look bad. I said, you're not making any sense at all. So I brought him home, and I stayed up with him till 5 o'clock, and he continued to talk. It made no sense. There was no reality So I stayed up with him till like 5, and then I kind of fell asleep, and then all of a sudden I got up and realized I couldn't find him about 7:30 or 8. I went outside and looked, I couldn't see him. I went out back, I couldn't see, I didn't know where he went. So I called him, and when he answered the phone, he goes, "What's going on with Michael?" So then Michael had gone over to his house and talked to Teresa first.
This is where we got involved.
Okay, so
They
he came
live-
over.
They
live
live
right
right
next door.
Right
Oh, you
next
live
door.
next door
To
to.
my mother.
Yeah,
Okay.
right here.
He said he had been over here, but Carol had left at about 7.
He said I had left.
Yeah,
Okay.
which sometimes she has to catch a flight, and 7's about the time they'll leave, so it made sense.
Okay. All right. And so he came in then,
And used my phone, and then he started kind of telling me the same story about the girl and the guy and how they were trashing the house and their couches. I had to get the girls up and ready for school, so I had them sit at the counter, and I got them a cup of coffee and got the girls up. I was getting them ready.
And then Chris,
And
you
that's
talked
when
to
I
him.
came out out of the bedroom and seen him in the kitchen and talking. "What's up, Mike?" He says, "Oh, hey, I thought you were sitting on the couch all the time." Didn't think anything of it, talking to him. "So what's going on?" And then so then he started telling me this crazy story about how this guy from the community somehow got the police over there. And at that point, it was just like she's saying, it was like he was making sense. It was just like this crazy story, so I'm like really interested. And I was like, "Wait, what happened?" I'm just getting up, so we're just like trying to catch up. And I was really into the story, like, whoa, oh my God, what happened? And then until he started talking about the community. And we started talking about the community, and that's when I realized something wasn't right.
He kept bringing up the one guy, Jeff Winger.
Jeff Winger. That's when I realized something wasn't right. So, and then he said something, "Well, mom thinks I'm having like a breakdown or something." Like, yeah. So, okay, but she was trying to get the kids out the door, and then he just needed to call into work. So then he asked if he could use my phone to call into work. So I said, yeah. So I gave him the phone, and he couldn't even dial the number. So then he had me dial the number. And so I had to look it up, Google it, looked up his work number, dialed it for him, gave it to him. And he called right in, left a message, just as clear as day. And then left the voicemail, said he wasn't coming into work today, hung up the phone. And I kind of did the thing, and they were getting the kids off to school. And then I think at that point you got to school, but then you're like, you need to call your mom, So I said, I'll call her. And then as they were going out, Mike said, hey, hey, someone's at your door. So I went to the door and opened the door, and I'm like, there's no one here, man. We got to go to the doctor, And then so they went off, and then that's when Mike wandered back out the street, and then I called her, and no answer, and then that's when she called me back. And this all took place before 8 o'clock, and that's when you called me and
Asked
where he was,
Yeah.
okay.
And she was talking to me. I was like, "Well, Mom, over here." And she's like, "Well, where is he?" I was like, "I don't know." And I looked out the garage door, and I can see him out there with his hood up over his eye, doing this number, just wandering around the yard. And I said, "Hey, I found him. He's outside." And she's like, "Get him in here." So I was like, "Okay." So I went outside, trying to get him inside. It wouldn't listen. Like, "Come on, Mike, go inside." "No, Chris. No, I don't want to hurt anybody with my eyes." It just kept going on and on about it.
Yeah, then he was killing everybody with his eyes.
Playing across the street on the sidewalk, playing over here on
Just walking, just
the power
bizarre.
boxes here.
Kind of pacing around out
Yeah.
there then. Okay.
And he wouldn't listen,
I was grabbing him, trying to bring him in.
I'd
and
raise
he-
my voice, like, get in the house right now, and he just wouldn't listen. So then I said, okay, well, Lauren, you got a hold of Lauren, and Lauren was coming. Lauren was coming when I talked to her. I said, he says he needs his keys. Do you have keys to his house so we can get in there, because he wants his phone to prove to me that all this story is true. So she finally showed up, and then she looked through and gave us some keys, which were the wrong keys. But and then I said, Michael, why don't you get my car and I'll take you over to your apartment and we can find your phone. And she asked, was there anything I can do? And she'd worked all night. And I said, no, just go home. I'll try to deal with this. And so I told Chris, I said, you got a key? Find a key and follow me over there. So I took Michael, me and him drove over there, and he's just out of his out of reality. There's nothing was within, not even near in a reality what he was seeing and what he was saying. He was talking about the 18 dead people that lived here in my house and how he talked to him and what this used to be on marriage it was just fantastic, everything he was telling me. So we got over to his house with the key that Lauren gave us, and he was shaking so bad trying to open the door, and he couldn't get it open, and then Chris showed up and was able to unlock the door.
Yeah, brought a key over.
So when we got the door open, went in there, Michael got his phone, and his house wasn't tore up or anything. And he got his phone, and he looked at it, and then he goes, they erased it. So then he couldn't prove to me that the story was true. And then I said, Michael, you are sick, and you need to go to the hospital. You need to get in the car with me, and I'll take you to the hospital. He goes, no, I'm not going anywhere. I said, you need to go to a mental health facility. You're making no sense. I've never seen like this. You're out of your mind, and you need to go. And he goes, you try to get me committed, and I am going to commit suicide by police. And I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, I'm going to do something so they shoot me.